Welcome to Missionary Roundtable with your host, Kale Horvath.
Hey guys, welcome back to Missionary Roundtable, the podcast all about the Great Commission, where we let missionaries tell their stories, but also learn a lot about the practical side of missions and take a peek behind the curtain, be a fly on the wall, learn about the things that maybe you don't necessarily know or see every day, and also just learn about how we can all better take part in the Great Commission, partnering together, being senders. Maybe you want to be a missionary someday. You can learn a lot from this podcast, or maybe you're just, you're not going to go to the foreign field, but you're at your church and you love missions and missionaries and want to know how to better pray and support them. This is the place for you. Today we've got another interview with one of my good friends, Eric Brown, who's a missionary in Belfast in Northern Ireland. Eric is a good friend of mine. We have been in ministry together. We have served together. We have done missions trips together before we were ever missionaries. Or pastors for that matter. And so I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation with him, and I hope you like it. Enjoy. All right, guys. So I am sitting here in Tirana, Albania, talking to Eric Brown, who is a missionary in Northern Ireland, and I am a missionary in Hungary. So there's your context. None of that makes a whole lot of sense, but that's where we're at, and we'll explain it more a little bit later. But Eric, thanks so much, dude, for taking the time. I know it's been a busy week, and thanks for taking time to sit down and chat. It's good for us to catch up because it's been a while.
I know, man. I missed you.
Yeah,
so
man.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you.
Of course, man.
Yeah.
Want to talk about your story for the people who don't know you, and obviously talk about where you're at and what's going on in your family's life. But really, let's just back up to the beginning. And talk about who you are and where you came from. So you are from Wyldewood Baptist Church in Michigan. Brett Bartlett's church, for anyone who knows that we're a spinoff of Theology Roundtable. If you don't know that podcast, go listen to it. It's a good podcast. But Brett Bartlett, co-host of the Theology Roundtable podcast, Eric came from his church, his disciple, served as a pastor there. And you want to give us a little bit about what it was like? That would be a fun place to start. What was it like? Serving, not just serving in a church, in Brett Bartlett's church, but being discipled in ministry, in Bible knowledge, all of that by Brett.
Yeah, it was interesting, that's for sure. But I have, people ask quite often, what was it like to work with or for?
Because he's such a character.
Yeah,
And
honestly, I had the greatest time. I had no problems really at all working with or for Brett. We had a great time. We did our own thing, but when we needed to come together and when we needed to meet, we were there, and we were, we had a lot of fun. And he let me, again, he told me, from the very beginning, he was going to keep his, hands and fingers out of my soup and let me do my thing. And I appreciated that.
Not micromanage everything.
There's no micromanagement again. And I took that and ran with it the best I could. And when he needed my attention or when he needed me to do things, he let me know. And, it was awesome. I was telling Jeff just last night, we were talking about it and things like that. And I learned so much. I studied it, so I was trying to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing as an assistant pastor? What do I need to focus on? And I studied Joshua, the life of Joshua, life of Timothy, as they kind of, followed Paul. And,
as a number two guy.
As a number two guy. And I learned a ton of stuff from them. And it was, I tell people I was discipled through the pulpit by Brett specifically.
Sure.
Obviously I had a disciple, but specifically Brett through the pulpit, and through Bible study. So we did a Bible study, a men's Bible study. We did a Wednesday night prayer meeting and Bible study. We did a Thursday night, kind of a teaching course and things like that. And I was there for all of those, and I was preparing.
Watch what he does.
Yeah,
obviously listen.
I would print out all of the verses. So Brett's handouts were verses that he had for the topics, And so as I was printing those out, I was, I can kind of see where he's going, And then again, I would sit and listen, and I still have, not many things made the trip to Ireland with me, but one of the few things it did was I have stacks of handouts and lessons from Brett, from his Sunday morning services, from his Tuesday, Wednesday. And so it was...
you can make I did this with a couple of books that Jeff taught through back in the day. If you take their notes, good Bible teachers, if you take their notes when they're preaching through a book of the Bible, you can bind those together in a binder, and you have your own commentary. You do. I mean, you have the Brett Bartlett or the Jeff Bartell commentary on whatever book.
Exactly.
And that's a brilliant idea, by the way.
Yeah, I still have all of those, and I would love to see how many binders I could fill up with those things, because I still have. Man, I'm weird. I kept notes from our meetings, that we would have every. I think it was like every Monday or Tuesday we would meet and talk about just things that he was thinking, planning for the church. Yeah. Things that small things, behind the scene things that I'm going to need and continue to need. Because once
the first time you step behind the curtain of ministry and you have to learn the administrative things that you don't think about when you're just young and want to be a pastor, Right. So when I say discipleship, a lot of people, if they're in our fellowship, they're going to have a very specific preconceived idea of what that means, and it's not wrong either. So they're thinking, when you're newer to the faith and you sit down with the lessons and you're meeting once a week, and obviously, guys, if you're listening, I know that the lessons aren't discipleship, but I'm saying that's what we picture.
Sure.
But when I say discipled by Brett, I'm talking about when you finish the lessons in that part of your growth. If you want to be a leader, you really, whether you know it or not, you have to be discipled by another leader. And it might not be an not intentional, it is intentional, but it might not be something that is scheduled on the schedule. We're going to sit down once a week, have dinner, and do this. But it is a Paul Timothy, it is a Joshua Moses, where you need to make sure that you are absorbing whatever it is that your leader is, and that's how they're discipling you in leadership. You're watching. It's like a kid with their parent. You're watching, seeing, absorbing. And so Brett was the one who kind of taught you the ropes of ministry. Jeff was the one who taught me, and so I guess this is since they do Missionary Roundtable, they do Theology Roundtable. This is kind of the disciple version of that Theology Roundtable. Way less interesting. Way less entertaining.
Yeah.
But what were some you already hinted at a little bit. What were some things that you did intentionally to make sure that you were picking up from him, how he goes about things in ministry, maybe even how he prepares for a sermon or whatever?
So one of the things I intentionally did, I literally wrote down everything. I'm kind of an old soul in the fact that I know you use Evernote. I use the, I love a good, Moleskine notebook that and you can't pronounce it Moleskine. It's a Moleskine, by the way. So
I didn't know either of those words.
Yeah, so there you go.
Does that mean leather?
I have no idea what it means, but it's my favorite notebook.
So hipster.
So, I know, right?
Anyway, you're a pen guy too. I'm not trying to get you off, but you like a good pen too.
I love a good pen. If you don't have a good pen, by the way, my dad taught me this. You need every good man needs a good pen. So anyway, I would write down everything.
Wait, hold on a second. What's a good pen? What's a good pen?
I like a good Parker pen.
It's a brand?
It's a brand.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Parker pens are great. I'm trying to...
I assume they're refill. I've never owned a pen that's refillable.
Yeah, no, you can get the refills for them. The G2s are classics, the classic G2. But
Pilot?
Yeah, the Pilot G2.
Okay, yeah.
0.5.
Pilot's one. Yeah.
0.5 millimeter, not the 0.7 or the 1. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're just a noob. If
you're a total noob. So, anyway, get yourself a good pen and a good notebook and plan to write things. I literally wrote down everything that Brett was telling me.
Nice.
I remember I pulled out a notebook one time and he was just talking about something and he goes, "What in the world are you doing, dude?" I was like, "I'm writing this down." He goes, "You're crazy." You're crazy. I said, "Trust me, dude. Like, I need to write this down." Mm-hmm. I forget things easily.
Same.
So, yeah.
Same. I want to reference it later.
Yeah. And so I still have. I had a very specific notebook, and I found a better one than the Moleskine or whatever. And I could I learned a system where I could remove all of the pages and keep track of all of those. So
nice.
Yeah. Anytime he had whether it was business of the church, whether it was spiritual things that he was discussing or whatever. And I tell people I would go back through those, and Brett taught me to think like a pastor. I did it even when I didn't realize what was going on. And a lot of times I think people people see decisions made in the church, and they can tend to think like, why would he say that? Why would he respond that way?
Armchair quarterback kind of things.
Why would he react that way or
Sure.
whatever? And what I learned is I don't know if it's this way with everyone. I can only speak for Brett and Wyldewood, but there is a reason behind the decisions that are made.
Of course.
The pastor Brett taught me how to pray like a pastor prays. He has his methods, and I took that and I made it my own. And there are reasons for the decisions that are made. As a member of a church, especially Wyldewood. Again, I can only speak for Wyldewood, but I promise you, your pastor is first of all praying for you, and there is a reason that he is preaching the things that he's preaching, right? That he is talking about the things that he's talking about, and doing the things that he does. And I learned you always have to think like a pastor. When you are, when you're doing things, when you're praying, when you're reading your Bible, keep that in mind. And he, that was one thing that eventually I didn't start out that way. I won't say, but eventually
until it's modeled for you.
Yeah. I learned to be intentional about how I thought about making decisions for my family, for the church, and now again, like I'm starting to realize very soon, I'm going to have a congregation, hopefully of my own, as I plant a church and start, from scratch. And
you know what to do because you watched it modeled for you.
Yeah, and it was modeled in a beautiful way.
And there are things that like you pick up without trying to. Like, so my pastor, my childhood, before maybe until I was like 17, I was almost done with high school, was Mark Trotter. And so when I was a teenager, maybe 16, I knew I wanted to be a pastor someday, but I didn't know what that meant. So I wasn't doing anything intentionally. But like all growing up, I wasn't doing anything intentionally for ministry, but you pick up a lot just watching men like that, Frank Perdue and Mark Trotter, in your life. But then my pastor for my adult years, 17 and beyond, was Jeff Bartell. And when I knew I wanted to be a pastor and was starting to do some classes and stuff, then there are some things that you'll pick up just being there and being a sponge. Yeah. But there are some things you have to do to be intentional if you want to learn things that you don't see unless you peek behind the curtain. And so, like, one thing I always tell kids if they want to be in the ministry or whatever is you have to be a sponge. And you have to make yourself available. Anytime the pastor's hanging out, like you're not being annoying, but it's like, oh, there's a missionary going over to your house. Can I come? Yeah. Can I be there? Like, well, I was only inviting these guys, but sure. Or the pastor recognizes that like you want to be a fly on the wall for these conversations. It's half the reason why I do these podcasts. Like, just if you are interested behind the scenes, be a fly on the wall and listen to these conversations. Yeah. So, is there anything that you we just talked about, like, what did you do to learn? But, like, was there anything that you learned by intentionally putting yourself out there and you were writing things down that you wouldn't have learned any other way? Like, just, you can't passively pick this up. It was, like, you being intentional. Is there anything that comes to mind that you learned from Brett in ministry or Bible or personal?
Yeah, I would say there were a couple of things. It's... the first one I learned was, I guess, how the pastor deals with his family, how the pastor leads his family. So again, I was not always, but I was at the Bartlett house a lot.
Sure.
And his relationship with his wife and with his children was something special, right? Because I think a lot of times men in ministry specifically get so bogged down with ministry stuff, and
it's easy.
Yeah, it's easy. It's 16 hours a day, 8, during the middle of the night you get a phone call and whatnot. But I mean, Brett was purposeful in how he spent time with his family and how he went about, like, I got some behind the scenes stuff and how they do their family devotions.
And him investing the Bible in his family.
He's always discipling his kids, his wife. It was incredible. And I think it's something that if I was not like purposely, kind of looking for those types of things, I would say how he dealt with his family on a daily basis. I didn't see everything, but I was there quite often. And I just got to see, and I became close with his kids, obviously, and his kids love him to death, and like they have just such a cool relationship, and so that was awesome to see. And then also just how to deal with people in general, right? So he took me in behind the curtain of some tough situations and funerals and hospital visits, all of those things that the pastor does that again most people don't get to see, and how he was able to deal with those, because there are times when physically you have no words for people, right? And how he presented scripture in a way to people that the only thing you could say at that moment was scripture. You had to let the Bible talk for you, for instance, right?
Yeah.
And how he was able to console people and be there for him was incredible. And it also, for about a year and a half of the time that I was the assistant pastor, was him dealing with Connor. And
Connor had, if you don't know, his teenage son had cancer that looked like was going to end not with him surviving. Like by all data and metrics, he probably shouldn't have.
It was.
It wasn't one of those things where it was like all cancer is serious, but some cancer is more treatable. This one didn't look that way.
Absolutely not. Yeah, and it was. Man, it was a rough time. The more I think about it, the closer I get to tears, because I remember the first time walking into that hospital and seeing Kim and Brett, and you're used to seeing your pastor, maybe Sunday mornings, even when gathering with and fellowshipping, and
but not vulnerable.
Not at their darkest time physically, and it was rough. But the way that they handled that was incredible. It meant the world to me, and I know it meant the world to a lot of people, to see how God leads and directs, even literally. And Brett will tell you this at the deepest, darkest moments of his life. And so those are just, I guess, some quick things. How to deal with family.
No, dude, that was great. Yeah. And if you're listening, this isn't like, obviously Brett is Eric's mentor and pastor, good friend of mine. My mentor and pastor's one of his best friends, so it's like we do think super highly of him, but it wasn't just like a commercial for Brett Bartlett necessarily. What I want you guys to see, if you're listening and you're the young guy who really wants to serve in ministry, that's what you need to do with your pastor. You need to intentionally spend time with him, and even if it's not like a handshake deal, like I'm going to mentor you to be a pastor, just do whatever you can to spend time with them and watch them and observe and take notes and learn how to be a pastor. That's good stuff, dude.
Yeah.
So let's move on then and talk about how. So you're doing all that. You were actually went through discipleship material, discipled in leadership by Brett, served as an assistant pastor at the church. How do you go from there? And you don't have to give every detail, but how do you go from there to then deciding that your family is going to move to Northern Ireland as missionaries?
Yeah, I always, I kind of have to start, I guess, probably about 10 years prior. So I
to now?
Yeah, to now.
Okay.
10 years prior to now. I grew up in a Christian home. I was saved at an early age, but I tell people I did not live the Christian life.
Cincinnati area, right?
Yeah, Zanesville, Ohio. Shout out Zanesville, Ohio.
That's right. I was gonna say shout out Cincinnati Reds, but
I don't want to be shouting those out. Shouting them out.
Hey, I get it, man. The Indians. They ain't even the Indians anymore, so no worries.
They did throw a no-hitter, but they also then proceeded to lose the game.
They lost the game?
So
is it like the first time in history of the world?
I think it was the 5th time that's happened, but the first time in a long time. Don't get me started. I can ramble on and on. But I grew up in Zanesville, Ohio, actually a couple hours from Cincinnati, but huge Reds fan, by the way. So I grew up in a Christian home, but I did not really truly see any real spiritual growth. Unfortunately, my own fault, my own lack of Bible reading my Bible. So for the
intentionality,
intentionality. For the longest time, I did not truly invest in God's word. And so when I moved, I married my wife, and my wife is from Lacey's from Brett's church,
which would be a couple hour drive up the highway for you.
Yeah, north on 23 for about 3 hours. So not far really from where I'm.
Southern Ohio to Southern Michigan.
Yeah, so not far, but I worked for her dad for the summer before we got married, and I started going to Wyldewood because Lacey could not stop talking about her church and how much she'd grown, and about her pastor and her friends there.
Yeah.
And again, that just wasn't my experience.
Were you all married at that point, or just dating?
It was like a year before.
Okay.
My first experience with Wyldewood. So I was there, and Brett was speaking through Galatians. I still remember it. Learned quite a bit, and we started during that time, and again, I had to go for one more year of college, but I would eventually.
You went to Pensacola?
Pensacola Christian,
yeah. Okay.
That's where I met Lacey and stuff, and then we got married, and I moved up there and started attending church, and we started Spurgeon Society is what it was called back then.
I remember that.
I still have my notebook. Speaking of writing everything
it's actually
down.
kind of awesome.
It's
Brett
really,
likes naming things.
Yeah.
That's like one thing
He
loves naming things.
So Spurgeon Society, and it was just a group of guys on Sunday nights that got together, and he would teach us the Bible.
Nice.
We went through manuscript evidence is what we would call it now, and just all kinds of keys of Bible study, qualities of a godly man, all of those.
Bro,
types of
I
things.
learned manuscript evidence. I always tell people this because I love it. It's a good story. When we were, before LFBI was what it is today, and Jeff was trying to do some sort of institute at our church, one of the first classes he did, we didn't really know Brett yet. I had met him before, and he invited him down to do manuscript evidence in our barn.
Oh, yeah, wow.
And it was a weekend intensive where we basically did 2.5 days, like 8 or 10 hours, 2 of the days, and then like a half day.
Right.
And then he only got halfway through his notes, so he had to come back down and do it all again like a month later.
Man, yeah.
But I learned manuscript evidence from your pastor in a barn at First Baptist Church, Newfield, Ohio.
I learned it in his living room on Samaria Road, and that's where I originally learned it.
That's what I think of seminaries, by the way.
Yeah, in a barn, yeah.
Forget it.
Through that process, basically what happened was I fell in love with God's Word, right? And I truly started reading it and understanding it, studying it for myself for the first time in my entire life. And I say from that, my life really started to change. And so, and I think Mark Trotter talked about this, where when you fall in love with God's Word and you fall in love with God, and then you fall in love with what God loves, right?
Amen.
And that's really, in a nutshell, the process of what happened. So I fell in love with God's Word, and Brett started giving me some responsibilities in the youth group for a while. I
remember that.
I did the youth group, and then after I think 3 or 4 years of that, he asked me to be the assistant pastor, come on full time, and then I started teaching the college and career class, and I would literally serve and do what was your job description? I didn't call myself the assistant pastor. I was the assistant to the pastor, right? It was the Dwight Schrute of Wyldewood. So I literally did whatever Brett needed done. Straighten chairs, plan events,
which is a
great
great job for someone who wants to be a pastor.
Right,
Whatever you call the title, ministry intern, assistant, whatever it is. Just do everything.
That's what I did.
Learn everything.
Yeah, I did pretty much every ministry, from the kids to we had a juvenile detention center ministry that we did. And what happened was I wound up serving with just about everybody in the body, and I wound up leading missions trips.
Nice.
So we've been 4 or 5 times to Hungary together.
Right, of course.
Yeah, I spent time.
First time I met you, I think, was in Hungary.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. I've been to, where have I been? I've been with Craig Warner to the Nambe tribes in New Mexico. Yeah, so I've been to India, and and basically all throughout the past 10 years, I'll be honest, the next natural step in ministry has always simply just presented itself, right? And so
because you were faithful with whatever God presented you at the time. Yeah,
when I didn't know what to do, I just did what I knew to do, which was read my Bible, serve my pastor and my congregation, and whatever.
Let me repeat that for you guys listening. If you don't know what to do what you know to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you didn't mean that to sound profound, but it really is.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you're young and restless and you want to move up in ministry, you're like, what do I do next? What do I do next? Do whatever God has for you to do right now. Do what you know to do. That was good, dude.
Yeah, and that process led us to where we are now. So I would say about 3 to 4 years ago, my wife and I originally started discussing the possibility of being missionaries. Maybe a little bit less than that, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. And we started just casually talking about it and casually praying.
Now, were you thinking international missions or just church plant in general?
Yeah, just
go start something new.
Church plant in general. We had talked about a downtown Toledo ministry. We talked about the possibility of international missions. We didn't know, and so again, a very casual conversation.
Yeah.
However, we went out to lunch one day with Brett and his wife, and at a Chinese restaurant, and I went to the restroom. I was only in there 2 or 3 minutes, and I come out, and Lacey had revealed that we'd been praying about it to Brett, and we'd been talking about it just casually, and Brett proceeds to then pull out
the napkin
this is the napkin story. He pulled out a napkin and kind of wrote out what he had been in his mind thinking about planning,
without even
hadn't told anyone,
hadn't communicated it yet.
And he asked us basically, over the course of wound up being a 2-hour or so conversation, would you be interested in my vision and what I want to do? And let us pray about it, obviously. And so we took probably 3 to 4 months then to.
So this was your pastor's vision for what Wyldewood would do to reach the nations.
Yes, yeah.
And so he was dreaming about this, praying about this, and then you say you're interested, and he's like, well, hey, this is the vision that I feel like I have from God.
Right.
Would you be interested in being that vessel?
Yes.
Very cool.
Exactly.
Very cool.
And so now we started to intentionally pray about it and have intentional conversations pretty much every day with my wife and I and our separate prayer lives together. And it took us, again, about 3 to 4 months. And I think what happened was we knew it's what we were supposed to do. We just needed to make sure, right? We just needed to make sure, not necessarily the if, but the where. We told, basically what we did was we told Brett, wherever Wyldewood wants to send us, we'll go. And that's so that's when he revealed to us, he wanted to start something with the Celtic Isles, and that would begin. Originally, we were looking at Dublin, Ireland, and now, again, through the course of different events, we wound up in Belfast. And we took about a year and a half or so after that to continue to pray. We do ministry in teams, so we were looking for a Timothy, and we started raising some support and preparing to move. So
let me ask you something, because I want to talk about update of how you're doing, because you moved there about this time last year, right?
We've been there
spring?
Exactly a year almost. So May 16th of last year.
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
So, yeah.
So I want to get updates on how you're doing first year on the field, but I also want to say, because I think that's really cool, dude. You don't hear that a whole lot. Do you think that sometimes and we'll just speak of our Baptist circles, we won't speak for every denomination who sends missionaries. Do you think sometimes we get a little too mystical and magical and really looking for God to shine a light through our window on a map to show us the where, when like God seems to be a fairly logical God, and I love that how you were just willing. I always tell people, if you want to be used by God, you just need to be willing and available.
Right.
And he'll take you places. But like you were just willing and available to do whatever God was doing through your church.
Yeah.
And wherever that may be. Mark Trotter used to say, whatever, whenever, wherever. It's just being all in.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. The local New Testament church played a gigantic role in getting us to the mission field. Yeah. We served at our church. We did ministry with our church.
You didn't go to college and sign up for YWAM?
No. Yeah. If anything, the Bible college that I went to put me off of ministry. I only desired to serve and follow God when I actually attended a local church that pushed me to do so, and that taught me the Bible. Actually taught me the Bible. That's what, that's what I learned at my church. I didn't learn about the Bible. I didn't learn, Christian ministry. I learned the Bible, right? And they taught me the Bible.
From there,
yes,
everything else sprang.
Everything flowed from that, and we get it so backwards.
Yeah,
Baptist culture, I think, gets it backwards all the time. Well, we're gonna farm out our training to whatever Christian college is out there, and because it's work,
it's hard.
The reason, if you knew a pastor's schedule, right? You pick a pastor in the Living Faith, probably, for instance. They're crammed because they're not farming out, training of young men. They are doing it with their leadership in their church and themselves as they, I was talking to Jeff, and he's studying the Bible nonstop, and Brett does the same thing, I promise you. And, every pastor
also investing his personal time in life.
Exactly.
And his leaders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why, man, I'm telling you, that's why they're so busy. That's why, they're running from here to there, because they're investing in you. If you'll just let them do it.
Yeah.
Right. If you'll just get out of your own way.
They're for you, guys. Your pastor's for you.
They care for your soul.
If he pulls the reins on you, it's not because he's against you setting the world ablaze for the Lord. It's because you're not ready and you need to be slowed down.
Yeah. Just like I tell people, just follow me as I follow Christ. That's what Paul says, right? Okay. Find somebody, your pastor, okay, hint.
Ideally.
Yeah, ideally, right, that you can follow as they follow Christ. And I mean, I know I've said this kind of already, but that's all I did. There was no secret recipe. There was no magical lightning bolt from God that said, amen, you're going to be in Belfast. No, it was a process, but it was
and then
done
over
biblically.
The years, so God speaks to us through his word, the Holy Spirit, and the local church. But then as you're listening for that and praying and seeking him, he'll also use circumstances to confirm
For sure.
those things. And so if it's not a snap decision where you overnight decide we're going to, insert country here, then those confirmations make you more sure.
Yeah.
And then when you get there, and it's hard, and it will be. Me and Eric are both, can we say COVID missionaries? Went to the field during a pandemic.
Yeah.
Stinking hard.
Yeah.
When it gets hard, you won't have second guesses about whether you should be there.
Right.
You will have second guesses about why you did this to your family, but you won't second guess why you're there, because God just spent the last 6 to 10 years confirming the path. And
Right.
yeah.
It was a crazy process, crazy time.
Sure.
I wouldn't trade any of it for the world. Looking back on some
Same.
of those things.
I wouldn't necessarily write it up as the prescription for how to get to the field.
Right.
Or make it a template. Let's say that. But yeah, same.
Right.
I wouldn't trade it.
Sure.
Yeah. Because God teaches you through those things too.
Absolutely.
And prepares you for whatever He's sending you to do. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, it's a memorial for you, right?
It's pile of rocks.
Pile of rocks for you to look back on when you cross the Jordan, and so I also understand that there are missionaries, there are people that have gone through a lot worse, right?
Oh, of course.
Man.
My favorite quote from Jeff is, "Not all mission fields are created equal."
Yeah.
So I mean, we're in Europe. My brothers who serve in Africa, God bless you. I love you guys. It ain't the same.
Right.
The hard stuff I go through is not the same stuff that they
For
go
sure. I 100% agree with that. Yeah. So, yeah, good times.
through. Yeah.
Fun.
So now you've been on the field about a year. Well, it was about a year ago that you left. It's been interesting for you guys. Why don't you go a little bit through some of that story, what your first year on the field has been like, and leading up to where you're at now, and some of the prospects and what God's doing.
Yeah, so again, we originally wanted to go, we felt God leading us, I guess I should say, to Dublin, and we took a survey trip there in March when literally Europe was banned from
I remember
travel.
that.
Yeah,
March
we
of
were
20, because you guys were having a hard time getting back.
Yeah, we were in Dublin when Trump shut down travel from Europe.
Yes.
So we got out the day before you can no longer fly.
Wow.
And that was a whole experience. That trip was nuts for a lot of different reasons. But basically, we learned a lot on that trip about Dublin itself. And so Dublin is one of the most expensive cities to live in Europe.
Really? I didn't know that.
It's crazy expensive. The cost of living is ridiculous. They're going through a housing crisis, so rent is astronomical. And then during COVID, they were one of the strictest European countries on traveling to them. So for the longest time, and you could not get in. They would, under military guard, bus you if you were to travel there. They would bus you to a specific hotel that you had to stay to for, I think it was 14 days.
Like Australia, that was pretty famous. They were doing that.
Yeah,
there.
you could not leave the room. So basically through that and a lot of other different things, we felt God moving us to explore north of there, and
whatever you got to do to get there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what we were going to do is go to Belfast. It was much more open. They when we got there,
physically open.
Physically open,
travel.
yes, physically open for travel. And so when we got there, they were kind of just coming out of a lot of their lockdowns and restrictions, right? So there were still quite a few things that we had to kind of get through COVID-wise, but we got there. We got there again about a year ago, and we had an Airbnb for 3 months.
I remember this.
Yeah, we had never visited Belfast. We'd never been there before. We did not know a soul in the country when we got there.
Because you went to
Dublin.
Again, and for those of us, explain really quick for the Americans. He explained this to me before we started recording. Northern Ireland and Ireland are two different countries.
Two different countries. Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, they call it the South, where I live. They are part of the European Union. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, which is its own. Obviously, after Brexit, it's its own conglomerates. They use different currency. They have different.
And Belfast is in which?
Belfast is in Northern Ireland. It's the capital of Northern Ireland. It's its own
which
country.
Is in the EU. That's what you just said.
It's in the UK.
In the UK. Sorry, okay.
Yes,
I got that backwards. Okay.
Yeah. So it's part of Scotland, Wales, and England, and Northern Ireland make up the United Kingdom. So they operate a little bit differently, obviously, than the South does. And so, we got there again. We didn't know anybody. We were looking for a place to start ministry. So we found, it's called the Ormeau Road. As we had about a month and a half to 2 months to kind of do some quick research.
Okay.
Because all of our research up until that
was
time.
Dublin.
Yeah, it was Dublin.
Yeah.
And so we found a place about 10, 15-minute walk from the city center called the Ormeau Road, and we found an Airbnb off the Ormeau Road. And we had to do a 10 days quarantine. But what we wanted to do when we got there was we took that 10 days to really do some intensive research, because we had to find a place to do ministry, what we thought God was going to start working in. We had to find a place to live permanently, and we had to find a way to stay. Those were our three main goals for that first 3 to 6 month period. Yeah. And so we found a place where we felt like God could work and do ministry. It's one of the busier cities in the streets in the city, sorry. And so tons of traffic coming up and down. There's coffee shops, there's a bunch of things to do, restaurants, grocery stores all up along there. And so we just started, once the quarantine period was over, we did a bunch of research during that time where we found things to do, right? So people were starting to get out a little bit more right after.
Took a minute.
Yeah, right after COVID. And so things were starting to open up. Yeah. So we started going to the coffee shop. I found a coffee shop every day. Lacey found a coffee shop that she would go to. And then we got on apps. And we found some different groups that suited. We wanted to meet a large group of people. So the way we do evangelism, as a lot of people have heard, is we net fish and we fly fish, right? So we started net fishing.
Sure.
And Lacey found what are called mom and tot groups, where Lacey would meet a bunch of moms with toddlers that were
the mums.
The mums,
there.
yes,
the
MUM,
mums.
by the way, yeah, the mom and tots. And so she started hanging out with ladies her age, with toddlers similar.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
I started
make some friends for your boy. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And we try to make a physical connection first, right?
Sure.
That's what Christ does with the woman at the well, with Nicodemus.
Go to where they're at.
Yes,
Meet 'em where they're
exactly. I started in a football group.
Nice.
And I started meeting guys there.
Which is soccer, guys.
Soccer, yeah. Proper football is what I have to call it. So I started a proper football group. I started at a gym, just meeting people.
Nice.
And so we started making relationships probably literally day 11, maybe even day 10.
Awesome.
I'm not going to tell anybody that. But so after we got out of our restrictions and lockdown, we started making relationships just by going out. Just
by making friends.
Yeah, by being kind of, normal. Okay. We met a lady on the bus and started talking to her, and she started talking to Jack. And again, long story short, she heard our story. She's a journalist. She did a write-up on our family in the newspaper. Yeah.
No way.
So we posted about it.
So you outed yourself?
Yeah.
Like,
we were wise as serpents, harmless as a dove.
Of course.
In our
you're not really secret agents, but you're also not trying to
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
spoil everything.
Yeah, that was a really cool thing that happened to us, and cool story right away. And then so I also had to find a place to work. Or a way to stay.
That was the big thing.
That was the big thing.
You guys went
visa.
on a tourist visa.
Yeah. And you get 6 months in the country on a tourist visa.
Okay.
So I had to find a place.
That's actually pretty long.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So
Hungary, pre-COVID was like 90 days.
Yeah. Dublin, I think, is 90 days. So UK gives you 6 months.
Nice.
And so I was trying to meet some people. And,
so you have a timer when you arrive.
Yeah.
Not only are you trying to get your family settled, but you've got a 6 month countdown.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to stay.
Yeah. And the clock was ticking. And it seemed to tick a lot faster, very quickly. So, long story short, I was at the beach one day. I told you the story just a while ago before we started here, but I was at the beach one day and I wanted a coffee. We were hanging out with a family.
How long had you been there at that point? Do you know?
I'd been there about 3 months, I would say.
It's about halfway.
Yeah, about halfway. And so we were at the beach with a family that we knew, and I just wanted a coffee at the end of the day. So we went down the coast just a little ways to a place called Donegal. And there was a coffee shop right on the corner, and I just walked in. It was an hour past the guy was supposed to be open, and he had a Boston Red Sox hat on. So I started just chatting with him, just trying to be friendly again. Gave me a nice coffee, and we talked for about, I would say, 20 minutes. He wound up offering me a job, but I told him, I said, I would love to, man, but there are actually some pretty serious limitations. But
you had done your research because you couldn't let anyone hire you in order to be Because if you guys don't know, when you're a visa to a country, you have to be invited somehow.
Yes.
Whether you're the spouse of a citizen or your employer, like
Yes.
you have to be legally invited.
Right.
And so, if it's a small mom and pop shop, they might not have the ability to legally invite you.
Exactly. And that's
So you were like being honest with the guy.
Yeah.
Like, listen, man, you might not actually want to get into
Right.
all this.
100%. Like I just told him flat out what he had to do eventually. So I guess I should say, like, I got his contact information.
Yeah.
And I kept in contact with him, and I had to. It was about a 40-minute drive from where I live.
But you didn't
so-
get like super excited at the beginning because you're thinking it's probably
like I started praying immediately,
Sure.
but it was just at that time it was kind of another
Potential.
item in a long list of things that hadn't worked out or
Gotcha.
had a long shot of working out. So I went home and started praying about it, and continued to pray about it, continued to stay in contact with the guy. And through the course of meeting with him over probably another few weeks, we were able to discuss him sponsoring us.
Yeah.
Right. So that process takes some time.
Sure.
His business has to register with the home office, and then he has to be able to give me a certificate that I need and actually hire me. And then I had
for
to go back.
immigration,
Yeah, I would have to go back home for a few months and actually get
because you needed to be in America for a bit.
You have to. So you send in all your documentation, your sponsorship with your passport. So you have to be back home
From like the embassy.
Yeah, it's so you send it. We sent it to like a immigration office in Detroit is where we sent it from. And so it's a long story of a lot of hard work and a lot of prayer and a lot of
Trusting God.
to work, because what I found out afterwards. So this all happened in from start to finish. It was about a 5-month process. Come to find out, this normally takes anywhere from 12 months to 18 months. To get what I needed to get done. That's normally what it takes. So we had 6 months on our tourist visa, and so we had to come home in November.
Okay.
Right. And so by that time,
Of 2021.
2021, November 2021. So by that time, I had most of the documentation that I needed from my sponsor. And then he gave me one final piece, and about early December of 2021, we submitted all of our documents to the American government that they needed. We set up an interview for biometric stuff. We're able to go and do that, and then when they have to send all of that stuff to the embassy, I think is where they send it. And from there, it can take a long time. We got a response thanks to we had some help, I believe, and it took us about a week to get a response.
Wow.
Very, very quick. And so we were able to get back. When we came back to America, we booked a ticket for 2 months.
Wait, you booked round trip tickets?
Yeah.
Okay. I assumed you would pick one-way tickets and then wow.
We're all in. And, so we booked round trip tickets.
So 8 weeks.
Yeah. So when we got my documentation back, or when we got the answer back that our visas had been approved, we had about 5 days left before our flight's back.
Wow.
The timing couldn't have been more perfect.
Could you have went back on another tourist visa? Were you back in the States long enough to? Because you can't just like leave for a day in most countries and come back and get another 6 months.
You could have.
Okay.
That was Plan B. But,
Gotcha.
But we had so after those 6 months, we had already started. We already had about, I would say, 50 friends between Lacey and I so we sent gifts.
That you're praying for.
Yeah,
and
praying for and meeting with. Like I had started I'd shared the gospel about 5 or 6 times at that point with some of those friends that I'd made. We sent a myriad of gifts back to the UK, back to our friends for Christmas, because we were away during Christmas. We sent them pictures of our Thanksgiving meal that they don't have. And so we wanted to get back and get going as soon as possible. And God opened.
So you weren't just trying to hang out for however long you had to be.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we booked the tickets that we booked. Because it was constantly pressing us, moving us a lot. Remembering to pray, to all of those types of things, and we did nothing. God did everything.
Yeah, amen.
And the same story goes for how we found a place to live. Like we had about a week left before we were homeless.
3-month Airbnb, I remember that, and then finally found a place.
Yeah, and
because there was a housing crisis, so it's not like there were just 100 options.
Right,
you couldn't just walk around with a realtor and look for your favorite. No. Yeah,
and we're international too, so dealing with international is a little bit different than just okay. and they were getting they were getting offers, rent agreements for 100, 200, couple extra quid.
Right,
a
everything's
month.
above what
Right.
their asking price
And
is.
so
yeah.
if it's just like a domestic person, why would I bother with the international guy
Who doesn't even have a visa at this
doesn't have
point.
a visa. So, and
Wow.
God worked and God moved. He gave us literally, like, I step out my front door onto the Ormo Road. We have a lot of different plans for the future. We found a building that we're trying to purchase to hold services in. It's about a 15-minute walk from my front door, which is incredible when you.
So you're doing ministry in your
stores.
neighborhood,
Yeah,
which is cool.
We have another opportunity for to meet people. We're trying to start a business and things like that to meet more people. A coffee shop.
And
there.
you've got some guys coming to, because you
guys,
went alone, but with plans for
Yes.
more people to join you in the future.
Yeah,
so you've got
so-
some people. When?
July of this year.
Goodness,
yeah.
it's May.
Yeah.
So at the recording of this, I don't know when it'll air. At the recording of this, it's end of May.
Yep.
So yeah, depending on when this airs, they could already be
Right.
there.
So
Very
about
cool,
a month
man.
from now, we're hoping we're working through their visas right now behind the scenes, and about a month from now, we're hoping that they'll be there, and they're coming to help start. They're going to do ministry the exact same way we do it. Through what we call our phalanx evangelistic system, and then they're gonna help me start the business, and I'll be hopefully pastoring the church that we're able to get going, and just to meet more people. It's not a business to make money, but it's a business to meet more people.
It serves
more souls
several
to Christ.
functions.
Yeah.
You got allowing you guys to be there,
Yes.
and then meeting people, of course.
Yeah, to provide visas for us. Hopefully.
Now, what some of you guys probably don't know, I mean, I didn't know this before I became a missionary. The things I wondered, like, how do you get a visa? What do you do? Every country's different. When I came to Hungary, we applied for what they call an other visa, which it's a general term that included missionary work, and I just needed to have an official invitation. And the way we came originally, actually, we found out it was. If it wasn't God, it was lucky. So it was God that we got here, and then I had to find a different way to re-up my residence permit to make it easier the next time. So Eric needed a job, he needed work. So every missionary finds the way, whatever way, to get there. And so I have people, we'll have visitors, teams, or just people online asking you, so what does a missionary do all day? And it's a valid question. You're just curious. You don't know. And I always tell people, man, half of the job, not 50% of your time, but half of the job of a missionary, especially in the beginning stages, is staying on the field, getting to the field and then staying on the field. Yeah. And so Eric's first year was, how do I get here and how do we stay here? And it's taken about a year to fully flesh that out. And now you guys can finally work on plans for the future. Yeah. But like, that is it's a hard part of the ministry, and it's a lot of trust in God, a lot of sacrifice, because I'll be honest, there are times where I thought in the first year on the field that, if we just stayed in the States and did ministry, I wouldn't have to deal with all this stuff. And we'd still be ministering to people. We'd still be trying to lead people to the Lord. Yeah. But that's where it stretches your faith, because this is a way. I don't know about you, but for me, I was in my comfort zone. I was in the town I grew up in, because I knew you moved away. Yeah. Town I grew up in, church I grew up in, very comfortable, loved it. If I would have stayed, I don't think I would have been in the flesh necessarily, but I would not have had my faith stretched in ways that I have had to doing this. There's just no possible way for me to experience my faith being stretched in America, in that context in Ohio, in the way that I've had it now. And so I've grown, my faith has grown, and it's not easy. It's certainly not comfortable, but God grows you in ways. And so I just always encourage people to try and step out in faith, because as an American, as a Westerner, as a Christian, if you've got a decent job, if you've got a good family and you've got a good church, there are probably lots of people who have never actually stepped out in faith in a way where if God doesn't catch you, it fails.
Right.
Maybe they have, but for me, there was very few instances I could point to. Yeah. How many piles of rocks? Joshua, what chapter is that? You studied through it, right?
Yeah.
I've preached it. I'm trying to remember what chapter. When they crossed Jordan River.
5 or 6, I think.
It's early on.
Yeah.
And then God says, okay, take the stone, set them up as a memorial so you can look back on it and tell your kids about what God has done. How many pile of stones do you have in your rearview mirror, guys? All right. Not going to preach. We're both preachers, and we can just start preaching.
I will say, like, as a teenager, a carnal, wicked, nasty teenager growing up, I mentioned I did not live the Christian life. I saw tons of missionaries come through, and I heard all of the crazy missionary stories, and I thought in my carnal mind, like, dude, this guy's just making this up. There's no way. There's no way this happened.
Yeah.
Until like I said, until it's my family, until it's my son, until it's my wife, until it's us, until it's me making the decision to step out in faith.
Yeah.
And the only thing, there were times, and again, like, this is crazy to me looking back on it now, but there were times literally the only thing that I could do was to simply trust God and offer it up to him, because you exhaust physical options, and that's where God wants you, I think. Right?
And
that's
you're
where
obeying him.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, God, and I've prayed this prayer before, dude. And I'm sure you have too. I'm doing what you asked me to do. I know you asked me to do it. I had confirmation. I didn't jump out. I didn't get trigger happy and jump ahead of you. I know you asked me to do this, and I'm obeying you. You have to come through. And then he does. Maybe in the last second.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the way you thought he was or the most comfortable way, but he does. And then you experience God in a way that you've never done because you obeyed him and you stepped out in faith.
Yeah. It's legit. It's legitimate, but and I never thought it was until I did it myself. Up until I was able to take God at his word and actually, start stepping out in faith and doing those things. So yeah, it's been a crazy time, but again, that's another thing. Like, looking back on it, my family has grown more close. Our relationship with God is better. Our relationship with each other is better. My wife and I, my son. I mean, like, our son is involved.
When you go through the fire together, it brings you closer.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's been incredible. Yeah,
that's cool. Now, I would love to. We don't have a ton of time, but I do want to talk about this. The reason that we're in Tirana is because you came here with Pastor Jeff Bartell and Pastor Joe McKay. Actually, they're not here. They're in a meeting with someone else at the moment. We're just at their Airbnb recording this. And you and Joe and Jeff were preaching at an annual Bible conference that they do between the different churches. And so I heard that Jeff was going to be here with you guys, and it's an hour flight from Budapest and pretty cheap on the budget airlines. We can talk about that later. But man, Ryanair and Wizz Air and having these budget airlines in Europe, man, that is awesome, man. You can get if you get the right deal, you can get a round trip ticket for $50.
Yeah, it's great.
But so I was like, let's hop down there. I brought my disciple with me from Hungary. I wanted him to see ministry. But there were so many things happening at this conference. It wasn't just a Bible conference, because they were ordaining another Albanian brother, their second foreign missionary that they're sending out. There's 3 churches and a 4th being planted. And it was officially the 30th anniversary of the mother church in Tirana being planted by Jeff as a missionary when he came in 92. And so for me, I wanted my disciple to see, what does it look like 30 years later of a missionary who goes and does what God asked him to do and doesn't just do the random bullcrap missionary gigs that a lot of missionaries do. What does a faithful missionary's work look like 30 years later? If Jesus tarries 30 years, which I don't think he will, but if he does, what do we want to see happen in Budapest? So this was your first time in Albania, yes?
Yeah, first time.
Awesome. So I would love to hear your thoughts as a guy like me who's in his foundational years of ministry. We're opposite ends of the spectrum. We're at the beginning. Jeff has been in America for 15 years now, and his ministry is still growing. And so you have a beginning ministry and you have a matured ministry. Yeah. What was that like for you to see? Did it give you kind of the vision of like, okay, this is, I mean, obviously God gave you a vision for your context, but just to be able to see the model of it. Because I also got to visit Colombia and see Paul Clark and his ministry who did the same thing. And that was always so encouraging for me.
Right. Yeah, this was absolutely incredible, right? And so first time I've been here, but I've heard from Jeff,
of course,
for years. But seeing it and experiencing it is completely different. First of all, I didn't know I could respect Jeff anymore, but the respect that I have for Jeff is,
it grows.
It just grows, because I got to see all of the pictures.
He's a rock star.
He's
here
a rock.
Too.
Yeah,
it's funny.
People
watch
love
him walk around.
Yeah, he's a
every
superstar.
single person.
Yeah, and so I got to see all of the pictures. I got to hear a lot of the old stories
because it was the 30-year anniversary. Yeah.
So I got
pictures from the 90s.
1992. Jeff is awesome, and
he was 30 years old back then.
Yeah, so
he was our age.
Almost exactly my age. So. And so, I saw the Tirana church, which is the original church, and that's where I spoke there the first night, and then I made my way to Doris, which was, I believe, the second church. and then Bathor is the third
Bathor.
church. Yeah, so I loved every single second of it, honestly. And the men, the leaders, the pastors of the church are incredible. But it was great. It was great to see all of them. But I told Jeff last night the two church plants were encouraging to me more than anything else, because I saw small beginnings, right?
Yes.
And obviously the 30-year, over the course of the 30 years, you see what happens from small beginnings. And I think as an American, I kind of got, and unfortunately, we all kind of have this mindset of what church looks like and what ministry looks like. And you go and you visit these churches that have very little, but that all they really have, it seems like sometimes, is a love for Jesus Christ and for souls. And you could tell the Church of Bathor was beautiful. It's in a smaller.
How many
building.
people did they have there? I know it's a conference, so maybe it doesn't reflect normal, but I haven't been to that church yet. I've only been to Doris and Tirana.
With the kids, and they have a lot of kids, which is awesome. And the kids are active in the church, by the way. It's even cooler. Singing songs and all this kind of stuff.
A lot of kids in the Tirana church too, man.
There's kids
were running
everywhere.
around
The next
everywhere.
generation is,
They're there.
They're there.
Yeah.
But I would say with the kids, about 30 to 35 people, maybe.
And so as an American, there's small churches in America, but we grew up in churches that were fairly large, over 100 people. Yeah. And when you hear 30 people in your head, you're like, oh, technically that's a church. That's fine. But it's like in your head, you're like, but, is it practically any fun? But then you go experience it and you're like, this is church.
Right.
This is a church, man.
Right. They,
especially in a country of atheists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy.
You get 30 to 50 people to gather. I mean, praise God.
I know. I could not, I honestly, I had a expectation in my mind, which is always dangerous, but it blew away what I was expecting to see. Especially so Sunday night, everybody kind of got together in the Tirana church, which is it's a large building. For here especially. And that
couple
building,
hundred chairs.
Yeah, was packed. They're looking to
standing room only.
Yeah, they're looking to do some more expansion as much as they can there, and it's incredible to see what 30 years of sacrifice and prayer and effort and study.
But it's not the instant success that we want, the instant gratification.
It's a marathon,
in America.
not a sprint. Yeah.
You got to start small, and it really is what I've learned from watching these guys is that obviously pouring the foundation is important when you're building a building. You got to do all the prep work. But you got to focus on quality of the relationships with people over the quantity.
Yeah.
Because if you start with that core and really invest in those handful of guys, that's what's going to allow 10, 15, 20, 30 years later for it to be this.
Right. That song, Little as Much When God is in It, it's like my theme song right now,
Nice,
I think.
nice.
And you can see that. Because there were times, obviously, at the beginning, and Jeff's telling me all these stories that I'm sure Jeff felt lonely, and I mean, he's got some crazy stories.
Oh gosh, he came in the 90s, dude. There was no internet.
Yeah.
There was no email.
Nothing.
I mean, when we miss people, we Zoom call them, or we call them on Facebook. And I mean, I've learned the language. I was telling you, I've learned the language almost entirely on Zoom.
Yeah.
And it's just, you have Google Translate in your pocket all the time.
Right.
So it's like, man, the dudes who went before the internet, they get crowns in heaven that we don't get, dude. Seriously.
Sometimes I struggle to call myself a missionary because the country speaks English. And
that's a strategic decision, though, too.
Very
it's
strategic.
not like, oh, praise God, that was an accident.
Right.
It's strategic.
Very strategic. And I was able, very strategic. But when I come in to places like this, when I think about, the Horvaths in Hungary, and you guys, learning languages and dealing with things that we don't have to deal with. And then when I see and hear stories about Albania and I hear Jeff talking Albanian, it's like...
It's neat, isn't it?
It's so cool. And I can't even really probably truly fully express how I feel, still kind of probably processing everything. But seeing and meeting and experiencing it and actually, being, seeing the body of Christ here. And how
it's encouraging, too, because
cool.
at the beginning... everything is hard, and you have doubt. You don't doubt God. I always explain to people I always go back to that story that's in Mark that the guy who he's I believe it's not the one who his daughter dies and Jesus raises. I believe it's the one earlier where the guy's son has demons and he can't cast him. The disciples can't cast him out, and Jesus does. And so before then, God says, if you believe this is possible. And the guy says, and it's been my tagline, honestly, since I got here. I even wrote a song about it because it was on my heart. Lord, I believe. I don't doubt you. I don't doubt who you are. help my unbelief. It's my faith is weak. That's the problem. It's like I'm not doubting God, who you are, what you can do. I'm doubting me, and I'm doubting this situation.
Yeah.
And I, help my unbelief, make my faith stronger. And so like getting to see this and knowing that the situation was harder than I have to deal with now, even with COVID being unique time in history, it's possible.
Yeah.
It gives you that hope that like, okay, man, just keep on keeping on. Just keep plowing, keep your nose to the grindstone. Right. It is possible if you are faithful and faint not, Don't be weary.
I think what I saw here was the part of the song, Little as Much, when God is in it. And I think a lot of times, I know this could easily happen to me, right? If I'm not very careful and mindful of this, is that we spend a year, 2 years on the field, and God, unfortunately, God is not in it anymore because we're trying to do things ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Look what I've started. Look what I've done. Look at the people that
Or things aren't happening, and you're like, well, something's got to happen, so I just start making decisions.
Exactly. Yeah. If nothing's happening, there is little. I know it's much, but and God doesn't show up anymore because
you've for the newsletter or whatever,
exactly, because you've gotten in God's way. And I think what we've seen here is little becoming much because Jeff made sure that God was in it from the start, even when things got tough, right?
Yeah.
Even when things got hard, God was always in what Jeff was doing, and because he wasn't selfish. He didn't try to build it himself. He didn't try to build the ministry. He just let God work, and even when things got hard, and it's been awesome to hear the stories, see the ministry, and it's been an encouragement.
Sure.
After spending a year on the field, this was nothing but an encouragement to me, and it's something I truly needed. So
praise the Lord.
Yeah, I'm thankful for the time here.
I'm if you do the whole Mary Martha dichotomy, I'm more of a Martha. If you guys know what I'm talking about, it's like the whole the worker who's work, or the person who spends all their time at Jesus' feet. And I think I can speak for a lot of missionaries. If you're a missionary and you have that personality, you're probably more of a Martha. You're a hard worker, and that's why you're going to the field, or especially if you're going to a field where you're the first guy, and you got to do the work. You're maybe not joining a ministry that's been there for a while. You're probably, I would get, maybe you're more like that too, more minded of like, okay, go. And so we can get in our own way and in God's way when we don't see things happening. And that couples with our Western mindset of like, if you want to see results, go get them. And in physical life, that's true, but like in God's economy, it's different. And so God taught me that first year so many things of learning how to just be content with dwelling at his feet and seeking him every day and praying that he would work, but being okay when nothing was happening yet. Yeah. And there were times where I would have an idea like, oh, okay, you know what I'm going to do? There's English speakers here in Budapest. We're all locked down, but you know what? I'm going to preach to my laptop camera, and we're going to go live on Facebook, and we're just going to promote it or something and see if I can get some people to reach out. And so I didn't just do it. I pray about it. I never had peace about it. I've had several ideas like that where God, literally the answer I would get is Psalm 27:14. Like that's been a theme verse for me on the field is wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thy heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Right. So every time I'd be like, hey, God, should I do this? Wait. All right, but I feel like I'm not doing anything.
That's the
you are
thing,
doing something. You're praying, you're seeking me, you're seeking men, you're looking for it, you're building relationships, and you're studying the language. That's what I want you to do right now, and I want you to wait and be patient. And I feel like it's really easy for us kind of guys, us Martha-minded, type A personalities, go, to be like, all right, I'm here now. I've spent the last 2-3 years, deputation, prayer, whatever, to get here. We're finally here. Now let's go. And then God will be like, no, you need to wait on me. Yeah. You need to wait on me to work. I don't know. Have you felt, I know I just kind of rambled for 2 minutes there, but have you felt any of that?
I definitely have. Too? And I do think, like, as a missionary especially, like, you're not getting anywhere without working hard.
Of course. And you also want to justify why people are sending you money to be there.
And it'll get you a long way, but it might not get you the right way. You know what I mean? So like what we did was a lot of times we use the fishing analogy a lot.
Yeah. So does Jesus.
We set out trot lines, right? And so
okay, so you go even further. Yeah. I like it. Okay. Give me the terminology, bro.
When we started looking for a visa, we set out trot lines, right? So we tried about 5 different things.
Sure.
And where God where God tugged and where God led, that's where we went when it came to the visa.
So you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, no,
okay,
no.
let's put some feelers out here.
And that took a lot of hard work, right? And then so in ministry, we're going to minister where God leads us to minister, right? So we do a lot of different things.
So the plan was Dublin originally.
Yeah.
And that door closed.
Right. But you got to be able to wait for him to start working, and don't freak out, right?
And don't quit.
Yeah, don't quit.
Yeah.
Don't quit praying. Don't quit, right? And when God starts working in your proper football group, guess what? I'm going to start spending a lot more time doing is focusing on those guys that I see God.
And if he's not doing much over here, he's doing something over. Okay, spend more time doing this now.
Exactly. And we've seen that. As long as as long as we don't work ourselves out of, God's plan, you know what I mean? As long as we're letting him lead us to the right way, not the long, that is an important characteristic and quality, but you have to balance the Martha with the Mary for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what I've
it's
seen.
not one or the other.
That's what I've seen to be very difficult, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's probably what most missionaries have probably experienced.
Absolutely. And you just got to be flexible. You got to be. I love. Jeff shared this verse with me. I can't remember what verse it is in Proverbs, but I always remember the actual scripture because I'd never heard it in like the context of ministry before. There's so many one-liners in Proverbs that you just hear and you remember your favorites. But the one that says, "Man deviseth his way, but the Lord directeth his steps," and like you kind of think of it as a juxtaposition, like this is the right way and this is the wrong way, and it's not really that way at all. It's man needs to devise his way and make a plan, but it's the Lord who directs your steps. So make your plan, Christian missionary.
Sure.
Make your 5-year plan, do it, but then seek the Lord every day for what step to take next.
Right.
And if he changes the path, change the path. Be flexible.
You got to be cool with God changing your plan, right?
Yeah. Well,
Multiple
for both
times.
of us, our original plans of going to the field, because we were both going to go to the field before COVID hit.
Right.
And so they're completely different. Well, maybe you ended up in a completely different country, technically.
Right, yeah.
And I still went to the same country, but like the plan is completely different.
Sure. And I want to make sure, like, when I say be cool with God changing your plan, I don't mean just intellectually say you're cool with it, right? Like, you have to emotionally understand that, like, I've invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, and God took and threw all of, quote unquote, threw all of that away, right? No, that's not what I mean by be cool with it.
Right.
I mean, when God moves and you didn't want him to move that way, or you weren't expecting him to move that way, you move anyway, and you are emotionally okay with it, right? Like spirit, like you understand what God's doing, and not just you, male, missionary. Like you have to make sure your wife is on board. Like she is understanding the whole entire thing, and because the family, as I'm sure you've seen, like families are a gigantic role and a gigantic thing for the missionary, and so when God does, not if, but when God takes your plan, and he does kind of, throw it in the air according to your mind and reasoning, you have to be ready for that to happen. You have to expect it to happen because God wants to work and he wants you to get out of his way and let him do that. So,
and I think we'll wrap it up here in a second, but I think that's the difference between the 20-year-old who's in Bible college who wants to be a missionary. Praise God, that's a great thing. Right. He who desires the office of a bishop desireth a good work. Praise God. But then you kind of start to work out your own vision for how you want your life to turn out and where you want to go. And you go on a mission trip and you feel the tinglies about this place. Praise God.
Yeah.
Awesome. A lot of missionaries
We've all had that.
end up going to the first country that they visited on their first mission trip. Not everyone, but a lot of them. I did. You went.
Wildwood took its first missions trip to Dublin.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I wasn't there,
and
but
then Brett wanted to send somebody there.
Yep.
So I mean that happens a lot. But if it becomes your vision for your life and your adventure and how you are going to serve God, when God changes the plan, that's when it devastates you.
Right.
But if you're all in, going back to the Mark Trotterism, for whatever, whenever, wherever, then it's okay. It's devastating in a certain way just because you're like, oh man, change is hard. And changing the plan takes a lot of work, but it doesn't devastate you because you had your whole life mapped out and God changes it, because God is the general in the army, you're the soldier, and he just changed your orders. I think there was an episode last season where I was talking to Randy Foster, and he spent 4 or 5 years in Zambia. And I was like, when you had to come back to the States, was that difficult for you? And he's like, well, yeah, but not really, because I'm a soldier in God's army and God changed the orders. And so I just follow him. And so it's like you said, it's all about that perspective of just making sure you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah. Don't get in your own way.
Yeah. And don't get in God's way.
Yeah.
God wants to use you, but you can get in his way of him using you, you know?
Absolutely. 100%.
And you the whole while thinking that you're doing all this for the Lord, and you're just, you're over here on a side quest that he didn't ask you to go on, man. Get back to the main quest.
Right. Don't overthink things either, right? Like, so people ask what our ministry looks like in Ireland, and I'll be honest with you, it looks a lot like what we did at our church. Amen. Like demystify it, because it doesn't have to be some weird, crazy, thing that you do, that you have to sacrifice all your comforts and every single thing. Like I hate it when people get this expectation of ministry or missions in their mind, and it's only in certain countries, and it's only in certain circumstances, and I have to live a certain way, and you can only do, you can only street preach, you can only do this, you can only do that. Like, it's the most normal, natural thing for us. It didn't matter. Our zip code didn't matter, right?
Yes.
When we were at 48182, we did the same thing that we do in BT73JB, right? Okay.
Is that a robot or a spaceship?
That's my postcode.
Oh, okay.
Right? So send all gifts and no, like, changing your postcode isn't going to change who you are.
Yes.
Okay. So get involved in your local church. Lead people to Christ and disciple them at your local church.
And if God asks you to change your address,
so be it. So be it. And don't get so hung up on the location. Don't get so hung up on the postcode or zip code or whatever. And it's not.
The where isn't as important.
No, not at all.
Because there's lost people all over the world. Exactly. Jeff always goes to Acts 13 whenever God says, separate me, Saul and Barnabas, for the work that I've called them to. Right. He doesn't say a place. He doesn't say where. He reveals where later. He had a work for them to do.
Right.
And so the work is the important part. And if you're doing the work where you're at, he might someday. It's always a Jeff. It's like you were saying with Brett. You just learn and you absorb. And you just absorb from your pastor. Right. Jeff always says, listen, man, if you do what you're doing, all missions is sometimes God asks men who are serving him to change their address for the mission. Yeah. That's all it is.
That's all it is.
I'm a pastor. Like, if you want to say, okay, you're a missionary, great. You know what I am? I'm a pastor somewhere else.
Right.
I was a pastor in Ohio. Now I'm a pastor in Budapest.
Right.
And we don't have a church yet, but that's because we're investing in individual people, and we're going to.
Right.
We're trusting God for it.
Yeah.
But it's not as mystical as sometimes people want it to be.
I think there's like a lot of maybe young men that are wondering, like, they've wanted to be missionaries, or they, I've been waiting for a while, and they're wondering, I know I have to be sent out from a local church.
When will they send me?
Yeah, when's my turn? Like, the question is, has your pastor seen you do anything at home? And by anything, I don't necessarily mean a bunch of like church ministry stuff. Yeah. What I mean is, have you led someone to Christ? Have you attempted evangelism? Have you been obedient in that? Have you discipled somebody? Yeah. Like, and that's the thing. Like, here's the reality. I knew deep down for the longest time, like, I didn't evangelize, and I had no business whatsoever being on the mission field. Now, would I have said that out loud? Absolutely not.
No.
But there was like, okay.
But you knew it in your heart of hearts.
And there was like about a 2.5, almost 3 year process where I had, like, that was my life.
I remember that.
Yeah, in Toledo. Like,
you were focusing on evangelism in where you were at.
And if you can't do it at home, you can't do it.
And not even that, because I know we do kind of use that cliche. If you don't do it at home, God won't send you to do it somewhere else. But just practically speaking, let me talk to you guys from experience. If you aren't doing anything at home other than good ministry, serving on sound team, whatever, worship team, great, hospitality team, awesome. But if you aren't doing the mission at home, sharing the gospel and making disciples, when you get to the field and you don't speak the language, or maybe you do speak the language, but the culture is completely different.
Yeah.
COVID wrecks your plans and you're on lockdown for 6 months.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're going to do what you know to do.
Yeah.
And if you were doing it back home, it's okay, because you'll adjust on the fly. Be like, well, I know what I need to do, and so let's just find how I can do that now. Right. But if you weren't doing it back there, you won't know what to do when you get to the field, and you'll either burn out or you'll leave because it gets hard.
You're exactly right. Always abounding in the work of the Lord. What's the work that the Lord was doing?
Be able to define it.
Yeah, exactly. So
doctrinally and practically.
Exactly. You're 100% right. Yeah. So
That's good stuff.
Yeah, man.
Went a little long, but that was awesome. Can you give people, if they want to learn more about you, your ministry, or support you, what's your socials, your websites, emails?
Yeah, so I have my email, if you want to get on our newsletter, so I send out a quarterly newsletter. You can email me at eric_7@icloud.com.
Oh my goodness, Eric.
I know, right? So
You didn't follow my deputation helper. You got to set up a professional...
I have a Facebook page.
Okay.
So you can follow Team Belfast on Facebook.
Belfast.
Team Belfast. My wife takes a lot of pictures, and we'll put up pictures.
They
and
can probably
stories
message you on
there
there, too.
Message me through there. So yeah, those are my main. That's my newsletter. You can also friend me individually on Facebook. We post a lot of individual Eric Brown. Yeah, there's a lot of Eric Browns, but yeah.
Sending Churches, Wyldewood Baptist Church
Yes.
in Lambertville, Michigan.
Yep, Sending Churches, Wyldewood Baptist.
Pastors want to get in touch to give this guy some money. Do it. Get in touch with their pastor.
Yeah, just let us know. So yeah, that's
Awesome.
us.
Thanks, dude. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Just learning a lot of different things about, if you're a young guy wanting to be in ministry someday, what you should do to learn and be discipled by your leaders and your pastors. A lot of cool things from Eric there. Also learning about what it's like to be a missionary on the field and the realities of heading to the field in those first years. Hope you guys learned a lot. Man, be praying for Eric and guys like him. Definitely be praying for all your missionaries. But those guys I can speak from experience in those first couple years, it's difficult. It's hard, and there's a lot of just plowing the field and praying. And so be praying for them. Be praying for Eric. Make sure you follow him on social media. Sign up for his newsletter. And just be praying for him and for other missionaries like that. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you back here next week, same time, same place on Missionary Roundtable. Until then, God bless.
Thanks for listening. Please rate and subscribe and share us on social media. Also, please make sure to check out our other podcast, Theology Roundtable, at theologyroundtable.com.